we're giving you a slideshow, an animation of Prairie Edge Hunt, and providing some information about Eckman Fine Art and our process. In this sequence of animated slides, we're showing Prairie Edge Hunt as a finished piece. Later on, we're going to show you these individual components as I photographed them upon completion. We want to give you some of the angles that you haven't seen of our work, revealing the detail that we've created. I've done a lot of buffalo hunt pieces over the years, and I'm going to also show you some of those in animated slides as well. As we showed in the video creating Prairie Edge Hunt, we had to do several original sculptures and mold them to do this piece. Many of the buffalo, as well as these figures here. I had the 6 life-size man and horse and buffalo, but I didn't have the women and children. I also had the molds for taking the bull with the bow, and we used those in this piece as well. And to do the sketch that's coming up next, I used a lot of the original photography as composites to present this sketch to Prairie Edge Fine Art Gallery to show them the idea I had for Prairie Edge Hunt. And you can see here this rider I have in a buffalo hunt scene that's coming up later, and there's the rider for taking the bull with the bow. Now this sketch was just an idea, and you'll see that we've made some changes from this sketch to do Prairie Edge Hunt. But all of the photography in here is from other buffalo hunt pieces that I've created over a number of years, as well as the landscape and the foliage like the tree and grass. That all came from other work that I've done. These figures were in Prairie Edge Powwow, a piece that we did previous to this, but they were 1/4 life size. I've done buffalo hunts in 1/4 life size as well. And this rider in peril I've done a few other times without molds. Now I had to recreate those poses, and you'll see later on the poses are a little different. This is the sequence of the individual components. This is that big bull that fell and broke his neck, the first one over the cliff in the jump, and I photographed it standing up. And you can see the bases, how I use those. Because they're transparent, the light comes up from underneath. I use a strobe and a single light source. I've made a cove to photograph these in with a black background. I have clear acrylic underneath with a white card under the acrylic and white panels on the sides of my cove. That allows these pieces to be lit pretty evenly, and light and shadow to work well on these pieces. That's the way I photograph all my work. I've learned over the years to do that. Since I photograph everything that way, I can take these individual components and recreate whole scenes like you saw in the sketch. And I can also create flat art that way. I also want to tell you a little more about our process. I didn't talk much about the bonding agent that we use in the Creating Prairie Edge Hunt video. The bonding agent is acid-free, and it isn't a glue. It can be used as a glue, but it does melt down the fibers of the paper and fuses them. Like on this calf, where we've taken our paper and with a razor blade we fluffed it up and added that on top of the bonding agent, which was on the original sculpture. And that's the way we do this. Then we spray the fluff with an acrylic spray to harden that, and the hair is made out of a separate sheet of hard paper that we cut thin and add to the sculpture. So the entire work is acid free. It won't change over the years. It has an incredible hardness. It looks very fragile, but it's not. It's actually very strong and durable. Now this first sequence of the individual components is all the buffalo that we've created for Prairie Edge Hunt. Next I'm going to show you the riders. The first one is the rider in peril. You notice he has a crow hairdo, and that's something I didn't explain in the video, but the way the story goes of this family is this individual is the stepbrother of the chief, and he was taken as an infant, as the Indians often did, and raised in this Lakota clan. He knows he's Crow, and so he sports that dew of the Crow, but he lives in a Lakota village. This is the buffalo bull that's going underneath that horse that he's riding. I've also photographed the bull and the rider in peril as one piece. Here you can see how it looks on the piece. And there's a good look at his face, the expression on his face. He knows he's in trouble. He's going to end up in that tree where the magpie is. There's the nest that the magpie is sitting on. And here are the two magpies, one on the rock with the nest on the right, and the other magpie that sits on the nest on the left. This magpie on the rock has metal going up into the legs. Now here is a good look at the back of taking the bull with a bow with that Sharp's carbine rifle. There's an angle that you can't see on the piece. After I photographed this, I realized I needed to have this rider facing more to the front, so I cut him at the waist and turned him. And you can see that I changed him when you look at the photographs of Prairie Edge Hunt. This is what I call the shirt rider. He's taken his shirt off and he's made himself bigger, and he's herding the buffalo over that cliff. And this one I call the bow rider. He's pulling an arrow from his quiver. And you can see the intensity on his face. He's going to get that bull he's after. The Indians hunted with the bow and the arrow and the lance. And if they had a rifle, they used that by riding up alongside. But the shirt rider has already used his lance, taking one down. This rider, that I call the lance rider, is using his lance like the shirt rider is using his shirt to make himself bigger, waving it in the air, getting those buffalo to go over the jump. And here, the old grandmother, the chief's wife with infant son, the older daughter, Little Flower, stand in the protective cove as Little Bear runs for that protection. Here you can see the startled look on her face, her doll in her hand, and all the flying detail with feathers, braids, and fringe that make her very lifelike. Holding onto that doll, running, terrified. Her sister coaxing her, "Come on, Little Bear, hurry." Now you can see the back of her and also a profile view. Now this is a view you can't see on the piece, but we finished these pieces in the round completely, so at any angle the viewer isn't disappointed. The old hands of the grandmother. Now she's got those around Little Flower, and I photographed them together too. And here is that photograph. And the mother. There's the back view of her. Now this is impossible to see. She's leaning up against the back of the cove, but you can see she's finished. We always take pains to finish all of our pieces in the round, even if they're in a relief and you can't see that. We photograph these pieces, and we may use these photographs at an angle that isn't seen on the finished piece in a composite for flat art or for a commission. Here's the background. I'm really proud of the texture of those rocks where I repulped the hard paper and used it there. I'd never done that before, but I knew it would work. And there's the tree with the root system and the complete background before we added all the components to it. Now this is a piece I called His Last Hunt, and it refers to the horse. And you can see he's also in peril, and this piece is called Their Last Hunt. These were pieces that I'd done a while back, but I like that action of the bull going under the horse, putting that rider in peril. Now that's a kind of thing that actually happened in buffalo hunts, and here is another way I've done this. This one is called Survival, and I photographed this in the round, but this was a relief piece with no ground or background. These images are just floating on that mount. This is taking the bull with the bow as a pedestal piece. Now I've also done this version using my molds from the bronze as a relief wall hanging. I'm not going to show that version, but I do it as a limited edition. This piece is called One More. And you can see I like to put a buffalo skull on these buffalo hunt pieces. This one is called One More Bull. Arrow in the mouth. He's wearing an antler headdress and a grizzly bear necklace. Bow in the hand, trying to put an arrow in that bow. And there you can see the skull there. And that's more of a bird's eye view of that piece. This is a quarter life-size piece, and this shows how the Indians can use that lance to cut the Achilles of the buffalo and to come back and dispatch him later. This piece is called A Way of Life. And you can see all the detail I put in the quiver and bow case on these hunters.